Let's talk about filing taxes on winnings. So everything you need to know. So here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. So the IRS states that you need to include all of your income on your tax return. And so we're talking about income. It also includes income from your winnings, right? And it's one of those things where you have to be clear as to what the rules are. You are required to report all of your gambling winnings as income on your tax returns, even if you end up losing money overall. You may receive a Form W-2G certain gambling winnings and have federal income taxes withheld from your prize by the gambling establishment if you have qualifying winnings. But you are required to report all winnings whether you receive a Form W-2G or not. In other words, the IRS wants you to be an honest taxpayer. So these winnings can include non-cash prizes and pooled winnings with coworkers and friends. And if you itemize deductions and have proper documentation, you may be able to deduct gambling losses to offset your winnings, but not to reduce other taxable income. So this is kind of important, okay? And the thing here is that you have to always look at what the law says for the specific year you have to file taxes on. Generally, the U.S. federal government taxes prizes, awards, sweepstakes, raffle, and lottery winnings, and other similar types of income as ordinary income, no matter the amount. This is true even if you did not make any effort to enter into the running for the prize. Your state will tax the winnings too, unless you live in a state that does not impose a state-level income tax. So the tax rate will be determined by your income on your federal income tax paperwork. So for instance, if you make, let's say, 42 grand annually and file as a single, your federal tax rate is 22%. If you win $1,000, your total income is 43%, and your tax rate is still 22%. So it's actually conceivable that winning a large amount could bump up your income into a higher tax bracket. So now let's talk about reporting tax on winnings. So taxes on prize money and sweepstakes winnings. Typically, tax on winnings like sweepstakes or prize money should be reported to you in Box 3, Other Income, of IRS Form 1099 Miss. This includes winning from sweepstakes when you did not make an effort to enter, and also applies to merchandise won from a game show. What about taxes on lottery winnings, raffles, charity drawings, and sweepstakes by wager? So tax on winnings should be reported to you on Box 1, Reportable Winnings, on IRS Form W-2G. So this includes lottery winnings, sweepstakes you entered by making a wager, church raffle tickets, or charity drawings. You can claim an itemized deduction for the amount of your wager only to the extent of your gains. And if you receive your winnings in property or services, you will still have to include the fair market value of your winnings on your tax return. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Now let's go a little granular here. So what are the details here? Let's first talk about taxable winnings. So like other taxable income, the IRS requires you to report prizes and winnings on your tax returns too. That means you might have to pay taxes on those winnings, and your winnings end up being included in your taxable income, which is used to calculate the tax you owe. But before you report your prize and gambling income, you need to know what does and doesn't count as income. So first of all, you have gambling and lottery winnings and losses. So whether you play the lottery, slots, blackjack, roulette, or another game considered gambling, you must report all of your winnings, even if you end up losing money overall. This is important. And the IRS states that you are supposed to keep a diary or a similar record that details your winnings and losses, which includes information such as the dates and types of specific wagers, the amount you won or lost, the address of the gambling establishment, the names of other people present with you at the gambling establishment. You should also keep other documentation that demonstrate your gambling activities, such as bank withdrawals, losing lottery tickets, or payment slips from the gambling establishment. So depending on the size of your win, you may receive a Form W-2G certain gambling winnings and may have federal income taxes withheld from your prize by the gambling establishment. And gambling winnings are unique because you can also deduct your gambling losses and certain other expenses, but only in specific circumstances. So you don't report your gambling income net of expenses though. Instead, you must report your gambling income and gambling expenses separately. And unfortunately, losses can only be deducted if you itemize your deductions. So it's one of those things where if you do not itemize your deductions in a specific year, you're not going to be able to write off those losses. So it is what it is. Also, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about filing taxes on winnings. Let's talk about other types of winnings. So basically, casinos and lotteries are not the only ways you can win money or other prizes. If you have received any kind of income from the following sources, you'll have to report it to the IRS as well. So we have cash prizes, non-cash prizes, fantasy sports and pooled winnings, gifts, and inheritance. So let's talk about cash prizes. If you enter a drawing and win $1,000, you'll win a cash prize. Other ways to win cash prizes could include sweepstakes, a game show, or reality TV competition. You need to include all prizes as income on your tax return, even if they are small as $1. What about non-cash prizes? The IRS considers non-cash prizes as income you should report as well. Whether you win a $25 gift card to your favorite restaurant from a radio contest, a new TV, a year's supply of a particular product, a luxury vacation for two to Europe, or a brand new car from a game show, you are required to report the fair market value of those prizes as other income on your tax return. What about fantasy sports and pooled winnings? Yes, fantasy sports and pooled winnings with friends, co-workers, or anyone else also need to be reported. Your friends won't issue you a Form 1099 Miss or Form W2G, but that doesn't mean that income should not be reported. What about gifts? Well, gifts are not considered a form of winnings in the IRS's eyes, even if they are a windfall for your situation. In the vast majority of cases, the donor is responsible for paying any gift tax required. However, it's possible for the person receiving the gift to agree to pay the tax instead. What about inheritance? Well, when you receive an inheritance, you generally are not obligated to pay any taxes on it on the federal income tax level. That said, the estate of the deceased person may have to pay any estate tax before passing on your inheritance to you. So it's one of those things where you have to see every situation is different. Now, it doesn't matter if you receive a 1099 Miss or W2G reporting your winnings or not. I just want to specify that. You will still need to report all income to the IRS. You just have to add your underreported winnings amounts applicable to the appropriate lines on your tax return. Okay. And it's one of those things where you have to always make sure that you track your data. Okay. If something is missing, just report it anyway. You want to be on the good side of the law. Very important. Let me give you a few pro tips here. I want to talk about taxes on gambling winnings and losses. Okay, I want to share with you a few tips to remember. First of all, you have to remember that you need to report all your winnings. I think I've said this before. And when we talk about all of your winnings, you have to report this as other income on Schedule 1, Form 1040. If you win a non-cash prize such as a car or trip, report its fair market value as income. Again, everything goes on other income, Schedule 1, Form 1040. And so in terms of taxes on gambling winnings, you might get a Form W2G. And if your gambling winnings are at least $600 and the payout is at least 300 times the amount of your wager, yes, you might receive that Form W2G. For bingo and slot machine winnings, the threshold is $1,200. For Keno winnings, the threshold is $1,500. For poker tournaments winnings, the threshold is $5,000. Okay, and so the payout doesn't have to be 300 times the wager for these types of winnings. Your reportable winnings will be listed in box 1 once again of W2G form. If a W2G is required, the payer, it could be the sports betting parlor, the casino, the racetrack, the lottery, will need to see 2 forms of identification. So one form must be a photo ID, and you also need to provide your social security number. If you don't have a social security number, then you'll need a taxpayer identification number. And so in some cases, you'll get the W-2G on the spot. Otherwise, for last year's winnings, the payer must send the form to you by January 31st of the following year. In any event, based on what we have seen in our research, if your bet was with a casino, we're fairly certain that you will get the form W-2G. But if your bet was just a friendly wager with a friend or you won an office pool, well, don't count on it. You'll need to actually still report your earnings anyway to the IRS. Very important. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about filing taxes on winnings, and I'm just talking to you about the tax implication here. Let's talk about the fact that gambling taxes withholding might be required. Generally, if you win more than $5,000 on a wager and the payout is at least 300 times the amount of your bet, the IRS requires the payer to withhold 24% of your winnings for income taxes. Special withholding rules apply for winnings from bingo, keno, slot machines, and poker tournaments. And so the amount withheld will be listed in box 4 of the W-2G form you will receive. You will also have to sign the W-2G stating under penalty of perjury that the information listed on the form is correct. So when you file your 1040 for the tax year, include the amount withheld by the payer as federal income tax withheld. It will be subtracted from the tax you owe. Okay, so this is really cool. You also have to attach the W-2G form to your return. Again, this is what you to expect when you plunk down a bet at a casino, racetrack, sports betting parlor, or with some other legally operated gaming business. Do not expect your friend in accounting who is running an office pool to withhold taxes, although technically they should. Okay, so it's one of those things where you have to really pay attention to what really works for you. Now, when we talk about gambling, your gambling losses, you have to understand that your gambling losses might be deductible. And it's one of those things where you have to be able to deduct it up to the gains. But if you are a professional gambler, you can deduct your losses as business expenses on a Schedule C without having to itemize. However, a note of caution though, an activity only qualifies as a business if your primary purpose is to make a profit and you are continually and regularly involved in this activity. Sporadic activities or hobbies do not qualify as a business. So let's talk about the fact that you need to report gambling winnings and losses separately on your tax return. Okay, gambling winnings and losses must be reported separately. Say, for example, you made 4 separate $100 bets on 4 different horses to win a race. If you won $500 for the one bet that you got right, you must report the full $500 as taxable income. You cannot reduce your gambling winning $500 by your gambling losses $400 and only report the difference as income. No. If you itemize, you can claim a $400 deduction for your losses, but your winnings and losses must be handled separately on your tax return. It must be separate. Do not combine them. And you also want to keep good records of your gambling winnings and losses. Very important. To help you keep track of how much you have won or lost over the year, the IRS suggests keeping a diary or a similar record of your gambling activities. And at a minimum, your records should include the dates and types of which wagers or specific gambling activities, name and address location of each casino, racetrack, or other gambling establishment you visited, names of other people with you at each gambling site, and the amount that you won or lost. Okay, and you should also keep other items as proof of gambling winnings and losses. For example, hold on to all W-2G forms, wagering tickets, canceled checks, credit records, bank withdrawals, and statement of actual winnings or payment slips provided by casinos, sports betting parlors, racetracks, or other gambling establishments. It's one of those things where you have to constantly make sure that you are actually you're keeping good, you're having good bookkeeping. But you have to think about this as like the IRS, because the bottom line here is you want to provide as much information. You want to be as much as transparent as possible. And we always advise all our viewers and clients to set themselves up as a business. That way you don't have to worry about the threshold that you need to meet, like in terms of income versus revenue. No, when you have a business, you can actually write off everything as long as those expenses are actually linked to your activity, right? So we're speaking about you setting yourself up as a single member LLC, for instance, or having a multi-member LLC. It really depends upon your situation. One thing I need to really sort of warn you here is that audit risks may be higher with gambling taxes. So if you receive a W-2G form along with your gambling winnings, don't forget that the IRS is getting a copy of the form. So they're doing it as well. So the IRS is expecting you to claim those winnings on your tax return. If you do not, the taxman is not going to be happy with you, okay? And so deducting large gambling losses can also raise red flags at the IRS. Remember, casual gamblers can only claim losses as itemized deductions on Schedule A up to the amount of their winnings. So it's really a slam dunk for IRS auditors if you claim more losses than winnings, okay? And be careful if you are deducting losses on Schedule C too, because the IRS is always looking for supposed business activities that are really just hobbies. What about state and local taxes? Well, when it comes to gambling winnings, state and local taxes may apply as well. So if you look carefully at the Form W-2G, you will actually notice that there are boxes for reporting state and local winnings and withholding. That's because you may owe state or federal taxes on your gambling winnings too. So the state where you live generally taxes all of your income, including gambling winnings. However, if you travel to another state to plunk down a bet, you might be surprised to learn that the other state wants to tax your winnings too. Okay, and they could actually withhold the tax from the payout to make sure they get where they are owed anyway. Now, one thing I want to say here is that you cannot be taxed twice though. The state where you live should give you a tax credit for the taxes you pay to the other state. So this is, and the reconciliation happens at the federal level. And you may or may not be able to deduct gambling losses on your state tax return. It's one of those things where every state has its own sort of rules. Check with your state tax department for the rules where you live. That way you have a clear idea of how you can actually run the business and how you can actually file taxes on winnings and do so in a seamless manner. That's what we want to focus on. You want to do so in a seamless manner so that come tax time, you know that you are getting the benefits that you wanted to know, like ASAP. It's all about transparency. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I'm just talking to you about filing taxes on winnings. So I gave you the overview and a few pro tips. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.